All right, this is section 6-7 called Finding Percents Mentally. And, just so we understand here, this is not a section where everybody's going to have the same answers. You're finding percents mentally, you're getting answers that should be pretty much what everybody else gets, but you are trying to do these in your head, ideally. That's the basic concept behind it, or getting answers that are close to, or estimating. So, and really the best estimations are exact answers. So if you're able to do an estimation in your head and you can get the exact answer, that is the best estimation. You don't always have to change numbers just to change them. So hope that made sense. If not, we'll talk about it. But example one wants you to find 50% of 32. And the way they're wanting you to realize this is really half. 50% is half. Of means times 32. What's half of 32? 16. And another thing you could think there is, if you're multiplying, that ends up being 32 over 2. It's just 32 divided by 2, same as multiplying by half. Let's go to example number 2. That was example 1A. Let's go to 1B. Here's 1B. It wants 25% of 48. So what fraction is 25%? That would be 1/4. Of means times 48. So if you put it over 1, this is basically just dividing 48 by 4, and that is 12. So 1/4 of 48 is 12. Let's go to example 1C. Here's 1C. This is 40% of 45. 40%, I hope that we can see that that's 2/5 or 4/10 or 40 out of 100, but it comes back to 2/5. Of is times, and you have 45. So if you can cross cancel there, and we are expecting you to do a little bit of this in your head, ideally, that's what they're trying to get you to do. If you cross cancel there, you get 9 and 1, and it ends up being 18. So, one thing, if you think of 2/5 of 45, you're first of all splitting this into fifths. So 45 into fifths makes pieces of 9. And you want 2 of those fifths. So 2 9s make 18. Not sure if that made sense, but that's the logic behind that type of question. Let's go to example 2A. Here's 2A. It says to estimate 13% of 120. And, if you look in the book, they have that 13% is, and it does say to estimate, but 13% is really close to 1/8 of his times, and we're still timesing by 120. And just so we're aware, this on the very first page, it has on page 327, it has a concept summary of percent fraction equivalence. So in other words, it has all the percents that are equal to their fractions. Well, 13% is really close to 12.5%, and 12.5% is 1/8. And you can think of that coming from 25% was 1/4. So half of 25 is 12.5, and half of 1/4 is 1/8. So that's where they get the 1/8 from. And if you put that over 1 and you cross cancel, you can get 4 and 60. You can get 2 and 30. You can get 15 and 1. So after doing all that cross canceling, it ends up being 15 over 1, or just 15. So in other words, you were splitting 120 into 8 pieces. Could you have estimated the 13% to 10%? Yeah, you probably could have, or something close to that. But 12.5% ideally is closer than 10%, so that would give you a more accurate answer. Let's go to 2B. 2B wants you to estimate 1/3% of 598. So 1/3%, we can think of that basically as a number that's really close to 1%. I mean, really, it's pretty darn close to 1%. Times 598, a number close to that is 600. Well, that's what they're wanting you to do. 1% is really 1/100th, right? Because percent's out of 100, times 600. So basically you're splitting 600 into 100 pieces. If you did multiply, that would give you 600 over 100. So you're splitting it up, you end up with 6. So about 1% of 590 or 600 is 6. That is example 2B. Let's go to 2C. 2C wants you to estimate, again, wants you to estimate 118% of 56. And you know, just so we're all aware, again, I'm going to repeat, when you estimate, that doesn't always mean everyone will estimate to the same percent. The closer you can get to numbers that are basically 118 and 56, the closer your answer will be. And like I said at the beginning of this video, if you don't change 118 and 56 at all, and you're able to do that in your head, then you will probably be getting paid a lot of money one day to do some math for an important company. But ideally, if you can estimate and not change the numbers at all and get an exact answer in your head, then that is the best way to do it. Most people not necessarily can do that. So if we look here, we can change that to about 120% of, we'll say, 60. So 120% of 60. And you know, if I was doing this, I'm going to try to explain, you know, all these can be really tricky. There's not just one way to estimate. But if I was doing this, I'll try to explain my logic. I would break this up into 100% and 20%. Well, 100% of 56 is 56. But I also have to find 20% of 56. Well, one thing I know that 20% is it is 10% and 10%. And 10% of 56, or a number really close to that, 10% of 60, if you're thinking of that, 10% of 60 is 6. And the same thing goes here. So 20% of 60 would be about 12. And since 100 plus 20 is 120%, this is an estimation, by the way, I could just add 56 plus 12, and I have an answer of 68. And that's an estimated answer. All I'm saying is I know my answer is somewhere around 68. The book has an answer of 72. And if I actually, which I just used the calculator here, if I took 1.18 and times it by 56, I get 66.08. So if you could do that in your head and get 66.08, that's really great. I did an estimation my own way and got an answer of 68, which is pretty darn close to the exact answer, 66.08. So that's how I did it. This is a tricky section. If it doesn't make complete sense, that's okay. That's just something that you get better at as time goes along. Let's move on to example 3. Example 3 says Amelia takes a taxi from the airport to a hotel. The fare is how much it costs to use the taxi, is $31.50. Suppose she wants to tip the driver about 15%. what would be a reasonable amount of tip for the driver? Well, the example in the book does kind of show it the way my mind works. We're wanting to take 15%. Well, we know that 15% is 10% and 5% added together. Well, these are easy numbers because if you want to take 10% of a number, all you do is move the decimal. Notice what I did there. Move the decimal one place to the left to get 10% of something. So 10% of $31.50 is $3.15. And since 5% is half of 10%, then I can take half of $3.15. So half of that is about somewhere around $1.57, 57.5, or $1.50, you could say. We're just estimating. So since 10 plus 5 equals 15%, this is 10% of $31.50, and this is 5% of $31.50. And what you do is you add those two together. So 3 plus 1 is $4, and 15 plus 57 is 72 cents. So my tip might be around $4.72. Their answer in the book has that at about $4.80, but both are ideally correct. I'll go ahead and stick it in the calculator. 31.5 times 15%, or 0.15, is $4.72.75 cents, 7.25. But this would round that up. So ideally, my estimation was pretty much right on. So that's the answer, $4.72. That's an estimate. Your answer might be different if you were doing it by yourself. If not, try to use some of the methods we've taught in the video. Good luck.